Good evening to the night owls. Good afternoon to the day walkers. And good morning to the rising dead. Welcome to Classified Culture. If you enjoy science fiction and horror stories, then you've come to the right channel. Our goal is to provide quality and original stories for listeners on a regular basis. Every day there will be at least one or two new stories for your listening pleasure. Help this channel grow as a community. You can help by sharing this video, giving it a like, leaving a message in the comments section, and subscribing to the channel. Your feedback and support is always appreciated. Well, I suppose that's enough said for now. It's time for me to do what you all have been waiting for. It's time to let the words I speak guide your imagination with a dark and twisted tale. In the belly of the city, where the buildings leaned in like conspirators, Sabine Dane found the address she'd been hunting for years. The abandoned warehouse loomed before her, its once gray walls now black with age and neglect. Rain dripped from a shattered window high above, each droplet exploding into 1,000 shards of glass on impact. The door groaned open reluctantly, revealing a throat of darkness. Sabine stepped inside, her breath fogging in the chill air. Her flashlight beam danced over rusted machines, rotting crates, and the skeletons of dead pigeons. The smell was overwhelming. Damp decay mixed with something else. Something fresher, like newly disturbed earth. She moved deeper into the building, her boots echoing on the concrete floor. The beam of light caught a glint of metal, and she approached cautiously. It was an old computer terminal, half buried under years of dust and grime. She brushed it off, revealing a keyboard worn smooth by time and touch. Her heart pounded as she sat down before it, fingers hovering over the keys. This was where it had all begun, or ended depending on how you looked at it. The incident that had haunted her dreams, the reason she'd thrown away her old life to become Sabine Dane, ghost in the machine. She typed slowly, each keystroke echoing like a gunshot in the silent room. The terminal hummed to life, its ancient monitor flickering into existence with a harsh blue glow. A cursor blinked expectantly on an otherwise blank screen. She began to type commands, each one unlocking another layer of security, revealing more of the dark web's twisted underbelly. This was her domain, where she'd hidden from her past and built a new life as a hacker for hire. But there were some debts even she couldn't outrun. The terminal beeped sharply, warning her that she'd reached an impasse. A door slammed somewhere upstairs, echoing through the empty building like a gunshot. Sabine froze, listening hard. Nothing moved but the dust motes dancing in her flashlight beam. She turned back to the keyboard, hand shaking slightly as she typed again. The terminal word processed, then beeped defiantly once more. Frustration bubbled up inside her, hot and claustrophobic. She needed access, goddammit. She needed answers. The floorboards above creaked rhythmically now, like footsteps pacing back and forth. Sabine's breath caught in her throat as she realized they were timed perfectly with her heartbeats. Panic surged through her veins, cold and electric. But beneath it was something else. The humiliating need to keep going despite everything screaming at her to stop. She leaned forward, eyes straining to make out the faint letters on the keyboard. Her fingers hovered over the keys, then typed slowly, deliberately, "Open door." The monitor flickered once, twice, then displayed a single line of text. "Access granted." The terminal whirred, and with a final beep, the screen went black. In the sudden darkness, Sabine's other senses sharpened. She heard something moving above her now, something heavy and deliberate. It sounded like footsteps, but not pacing anymore. They were coming closer. Her heart hammered against her ribs, echoing through the silent building. Her breath came in short gasps, fogging up around her despite the chill. Fear clawed at her throat, threatening to choke off any sound she might make. Suddenly, the overhead lights flickered on with a harsh buzz. Sabine blinked against the sudden brightness, shielding her eyes with one hand. When she lowered it, she saw that she was no longer alone. Standing between her and the exit was a figure dressed in black from head to toe. A ski mask obscured their face, leaving only 2 dark holes where their eyes should be. They stood completely still, hands hanging loose at their sides. Sabine's mind raced as she tried to place them. Whoever they weren't just some squatter or homeless person taking shelter in the abandoned building. This was no ordinary intruder. She felt it deep in her bones, like a wrong note played on a piano string. "Who are you?" Her voice echoed around the empty room, barely above a whisper. But the figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, watching her with those dark eye holes. Sabine's body tensed, ready to run at the first sign of threat. But the figure remained still, almost patient, as if they were waiting for something. Then it occurred to her, maybe they weren't here to stop her. Maybe they were here to help her. Hope sparked in her chest, fragile and fierce. She stood up slowly, hands raised in a universal gesture of peace. "Thank you," she said, voice shaking slightly with relief. "I couldn't have done this without your help." The figure remained motionless for another moment before raising one gloved hand. Slowly, deliberately, they pulled off the ski mask. Sabine's breath caught in her throat as she saw who it was. It was a face she knew well, too well. A face from her past that had haunted her dreams and fueled her nightmares. A face she thought she'd never see again. "Hello, Sabine," said the figure, voice cold and familiar. "I've been waiting for you." In that moment, hope died in Sabine's chest like a snuffed-out candle flame, and something else took its place. Something dark, something terrible, something she couldn't quite put her finger on, but it felt wrong, like bones shifting beneath pressure, grinding together where they shouldn't be. She took a step back, hands trembling as she reached for her flashlight, but before she could grab it, the figure lunged forward. Strong fingers wrapped around her wrist, squeezing hard enough to make bones creak. "Let go," Sabine hissed, panic surging through her veins again. She tried to wrench free, but the grip was ironclad. The figure leaned in close, breath hot on her ear. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Sabine," they whispered. "You see, we have work to do." And then everything went black. Sabine's body was a traitor, moving when her mind screamed at it to stop. Her feet carried her down the dark corridor, away from the figure who had once been familiar, but now felt like a stranger wrapped in cold, alien skin. She could still feel their fingers around her wrist, hear their voice whispering in her ear. "We have work to do," and it filled her with a terror so profound it was paralyzing. But she couldn't stop moving. It was as if some unseen force was pushing her forward, driving her deeper into the abandoned warehouse. The humiliating need for answers still gripped her, even now when hope had curdled in her chest like spoiled milk. The hallway stretched out before her, endless and twisting like a serpent's spine. The smell of decay grew stronger with each step, clinging to the back of her throat like rotten fruit. And yet, underlying that decay was something else, something fresher, almost alive. She wrinkled her nose, trying to place it. It reminded her of the time she'd stumbled upon a nest of rats in an abandoned building downtown. The smell had been overwhelming, a mix of rotting flesh and something else, something earthy, like fresh dirt after rain. Here too, there was that undertone of damp earth, but it was different somehow, richer, almost inviting. It made her skin crawl, as if unseen fingers were tracing patterns on her flesh, beckoning her deeper into the darkness. Her flashlight beam danced over walls stained with age and God knew what else. She caught glimpses of graffiti scrawled in hasty, erratic lines, symbols that seemed to writhe under the light, defying comprehension. There were words too, carved deep into the rotting wood. It sleeps, feeds slowly, never leaves. Sabine's breath caught in her throat as she realized what this place was. A feeding ground. Something had been living here, growing fat on slow, careful meals. The realization made her stomach turn, bile rising like acid at the back of her mouth. But there was no time for revulsion. Her body kept moving, carried along by some invisible tide. She felt it now, a pulsating hum just beneath her skin, like static before thunder. It echoed through her bones, resonating with something ancient and terrifying buried deep within her own flesh. Then she saw the room. A door hung crooked on its hinges, half open like a mouth full of broken teeth. Light spilled from within, casting long shadows that seemed to writhe and twist in her peripheral vision. The smell was overwhelming here, earthy decay mixed with something else, something sickeningly sweet. Her body moved again, carrying her into the room despite her mind's desperate pleas for retreat. She shone her flashlight around, revealing walls streaked with dirt and blood, floors covered in a thick layer of dust disturbed only by large deliberate tracks leading to... A table stood in the center of the room, long and sturdy enough to hold something large and heavy. Or someone. There were marks on it too, deep gouges scored into the wood, filled with dirt and flecks of something dark that might have been blood. Sabine approached slowly, her heart pounding like a drum in her ears. The hum under her skin grew louder, more insistent. She could feel it now, like a heartbeat pulsing just beyond comprehension, a rhythm older than time itself. As she rounded the table, she saw what lay upon it, and screamed. It was a body, or what remained of one. Limbs were splayed out at unnatural angles, bones shifting beneath flesh as if something inside struggled to escape. The torso was... wrong? It seemed too large, too broad, as if it had been stretched somehow, expanded from within. And the head. God, the head. It lolled to one side, face frozen in a mask of terror. But worse than that were the eyes. They were gone, replaced by two perfect, gleaming orbs of obsidian. They seemed to absorb the light, swallowing it whole and leaving nothing but darkness behind. Sabine stumbled back, hands flying to her mouth to stifle another scream. This was no feeding ground. This was a charnel house, a temple dedicated to some unholy god she could not comprehend. Then she heard it. A soft, wet sound coming from beneath the table, like something large moving through mud. She froze, terror rooting her feet to the floor as the sound grew louder, closer. It sounded almost rhythmic. She shone her flashlight under the table and saw them then. Fingers, long, thin digits tipped with sharp, curved nails that had been torn and packed with dirt. They flexed and twisted, bones shifting beneath pressure in ways they shouldn't have been able to move. They were bending backward, popping softly like overcooked rice as they reached out for her, beckoning her closer. Sabine's mind shattered. She turned and ran, fleeing the room, the warehouse, the city itself, if she could only get away from those fingers. That sound, that smell. But it was too late. The hum under her skin was too loud now, drowning out everything else. It felt like bones shifting again, grinding together where they shouldn't be, and she knew then what had been waiting for her all along. It had been feeding slowly, waiting patiently, growing stronger with each passing day until it could finally claim its prize. Her. She fell to the ground, convulsing as the hum rose to a deafening roar. Her body arched off the floor, spine bending at impossible angles. She felt something inside her snap, a barrier breaking, allowing something ancient and terrible to slip through. And then, she was changing. Bones shifted beneath her skin, popping and grinding into new shapes. Her hands curled into claws, nails stretching into sharp points that tore through flesh like paper. She could feel it all, every agonizing moment of transformation. But there was no pain, just a sense of rightness, of purpose fulfilled. When it was over, she stood up on trembling legs and looked around at the world with new eyes. It was different now, clearer somehow. She could see things she hadn't noticed before, patterns in the decay, rhythms in the darkness. And there, just beyond her perception, was a voice calling out to her. "Come," it whispered, beckoning her deeper into the shadows. "We have work to do." And Sabine followed, leaving behind the old world and all its weaknesses, for she was no longer merely Sabine Dane, hacker, outcast, survivor. She was something more now, something ancient, powerful, terrifying, something hungry. Sabine's lungs burned as she ran, heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped animal. The warehouse stretched out before her, an endless labyrinth of decay and shadows. She could feel it behind her, that ancient presence pulsating through the very air, urging her forward with a silent, insistent hunger. She turned sharply, ducking into what she hoped was a dead-end room. It was little more than a closet, filled with rotting shelves and the stench of decay. She pressed herself against the wall, breath ragged in her throat, and listened. The rhythmic wet sound echoed down the hallway, growing louder as it approached. Sabine clenched her fists, nails digging into palms hard enough to draw blood. The pain grounded her, focused her mind amidst the rising dread. She needed a plan. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on an old rusted pipe wrench hanging from a hook. It was heavy in her hand, the metal cold and slick with corrosion. Not much, but better than nothing. As she stepped back into the hallway, she caught sight of something that made her blood run cold. A single fingernail lay on the ground, torn and packed with dirt. She remembered the hands beneath the table, those long digits bending backward like overcooked rice. Her stomach roiled at the thought of what might have once been attached to that nail. The wet sound stopped abruptly outside the room she'd just left. Sabine could feel its presence now, a palpable weight pressing against her chest. She raised the wrench, hands shaking but grip steady. Suddenly, the door swung open with a groan of ancient hinges. A figure stood there, tall and gaunt, face hidden by shadows. It was the same figure she'd seen earlier, the one that felt so alien and threatening. But now, there was something else too. A hunger that made her insides turn to ice. "Sabine," it rasped, voice like dry leaves crunching underfoot. "We've been waiting for you." She swung the wrench without hesitation, aiming for its head, but her hand passed through empty air as the figure dodged effortlessly. It moved with a fluid grace that seemed impossible given its gangly frame. "You can't escape your fate," it whispered, circling her like a predator. "You belong to us now." Panic surged through her veins, but she pushed it down, focusing on survival. She feinted left and darted right, trying to break free from the room. But the creature anticipated her move, blocking her path with ease. "You can't leave," it hissed, baring teeth that seemed too large for its mouth. "This is where you belong." Sabine's heart pounded wildly as she backed away, pressing herself against a nearby shelf. She could feel something shifting beneath her feet, a subtle vibration that seemed to resonate deep within her bones. The creature advanced on her, moving with an unsettling grace despite its twisted limbs. Its eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, pupils slitted like those of a serpent. "Give in," it whispered. "Embrace your new form." Her breath hitched as she noticed something horrifying. Its fingers were bending backward again, bones shifting beneath pressure with soft pops. And this time, there was no mistaking the intent behind that movement. It reached out for her, claws extended like a cat ready to pounce. Sabine reacted instinctively, swinging the wrench with all her might. But before it could connect, she felt something snap inside her. Pain exploded through every nerve ending, followed by a rush of otherness. Her body convulsed as bones shifted beneath her skin, popping and grinding into new shapes. She screamed, dropping the wrench as her hands curled into claws. When the transformation finally stopped, Sabine looked down at herself in horror. Her fingers were now long, thin digits tipped with sharp, curved nails that had been torn and packed with dirt. They flexed and twisted, bones shifting beneath pressure in ways they shouldn't have been able to move. But worse than her physical transformation was the realization of what she'd become. The creature before her wasn't an intruder, a monster. It was a reflection, a manifestation of something ancient and terrible that had been lurking within her all along. "You see now," it whispered, voice filled with approval. "You understand." Sabine shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No," she choked out. "I don't want this." "But you can't deny your nature," it said softly. "Not anymore." It stepped closer, close enough for her to feel its breath on her face. "Come with me, Sabine. Let's begin our work together." Around them, the warehouse seemed to hum with approval, walls pulsating with an ancient rhythm. And despite every fiber of her being screaming at her to run, Sabine found herself turning towards that sound, following it deeper into the shadows. Because she was no longer merely Sabine Dane, hacker, outcast, survivor. She was something more now. Something ancient, powerful, terrifying, something hungry. Sabine followed the creature deeper into the shadows of the warehouse, her body moving against her will, propelled by an ancient impulse she couldn't resist. The air grew colder, heavier, as they ventured further from the faint light of the entrance. She could feel it now, a subtle vibration beneath her feet, like the hum of power coursing through wires. But this was no electrical current. It was something far older and more malevolent. The creature led them to a door that looked no different than any other in this decaying place. Yet when Sabine reached out to push it open, she hesitated. The smell wafting from within made her stomach churn, a mix of rotten flesh, damp earth, and something else, something sour like bile. It was the smell of freshly opened grave. "Go on," the creature whispered behind her, its breath hot against her neck. "You know you want to." Her hand trembled as she pushed open the door, revealing a room that seemed to defy logic. Despite decades of decay, evident throughout the warehouse, this room smelled newly disturbed, as if something had only just been awakened from its slumber. The walls were lined with rotting shelves filled with relics of a past life. Yellowed books, brittle bones, and rusted tools arranged in precise patterns that seemed almost ritualistic. The air was thick with dust motes dancing in the faint light filtering through one high window, casting eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. But it was what hung from the ceiling that made Sabine's breath catch in her throat. From iron hooks dangled long strings of fingernails, human fingernails torn from their beds and strung together like grotesque beads. They swayed gently, tapping against each other with soft clicks that seemed eerily like whispered conversations. Beneath them lay a table, once perhaps used for meals or meetings, now stained dark with age, and something else. Something sticky and red-brown that Sabine knew instinctively was blood. And on the table sat an old typewriter, its keys blackened with use and disuse alike. As she stepped closer, she noticed something strange about the typewriter. The letters on some of the keys were worn down more than others, as if they'd been used far too many times while the rest remained untouched. She leaned in to look closer, her heart pounding in her chest like a trapped animal. The letters that had been used so frequently formed words she recognized all too well. "Feed me. Please. Sit," came the creature's voice from behind her, followed by the scrape of wood against floor as it pulled out a chair. "It's time." Sabine hesitated before complying, feeling like a marionette whose strings were being tugged by an unseen puppeteer. She sat down at the table, facing the typewriter, feeling its ancient weight beneath her fingers. "Now," said the creature, moving around to stand behind her, "you must feed." A cold sweat broke out across Sabine's brow as she realized what was expected of her. Her stomach roiled with revulsion, but her hands began to move nonetheless, pressing down on those worn keys. F. Idanoptidan. Eon. Her fingers hesitated over the final key, trembling like leaves before a storm. "Don't fight it," whispered the creature, its voice like rustling paper. It feels so much better when you give in. With a sobbing breath, Sabine pressed down on that last key. D. As she did, something shifted inside her, bones grinding against each other, rearranging themselves into two new configurations with soft pops. Her fingers began to bend backward at unnatural angles, joints stretching and popping like bubble wrap dough. She screamed, clutching her hands to her chest as they transformed before her eyes. When the pain finally subsided, she looked down at her hands in horror. They were no longer her own. Long, thin digits tipped with sharp, curved nails that had been torn and packed with dirt. They flexed and twisted, bones shifting beneath pressure in ways they shouldn't have been able to move. She felt a terrible gnawing hunger well up within her, like something alive and hungry writhing through her veins. "Good," said the creature, its voice filled with approval. "Now you understand." Sabine shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No," she choked out. "I don't want this." "But you can't deny your nature," it said softly. "Not anymore." It leaned closer, close enough for her to see the hunger burning in its own eyes. "You must feed again soon. The hunger will grow stronger if you resist." Around them, the warehouse seemed to hum with approval, walls pulsating with an ancient rhythm. Sabine felt a strange sensation beneath her feet, not quite vibration, but more like breathing, as if the very building was alive and inhaling deeply. She stood up from the table, her new fingers clicking against its surface like insect legs. "I won't do this," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Yet even as she spoke, her body turned towards the door, towards whatever fresh prey awaited her outside. "Sabine," warned the creature, but she ignored it, rushing from the room and down the hall, desperate to escape this ancient presence that now dwelt within her. But with every step, she knew there was no escaping herself, not anymore. She was the hunger made manifest, and soon, very soon, she would feed again. Sabine stumbled through the maze of corridors, her new limbs clicking against the rotting floorboards like a grotesque metronome. The sound echoed eerily around her, each click punctuating the silent dread that hung heavy in the air. She could feel it too, the relentless push forward, driving her deeper into the warehouse despite her desperate desire to flee. The creature followed close behind, its footsteps barely audible, but its presence unmistakable. It was as if the very fabric of reality had been torn apart here, leaving only this nightmarish realm where Sabine now moved against her will. She felt like a puppet on strings, controlled by an unseen master, and it terrified her. As she turned a corner, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A series of small rooms opened up before her, connected by narrow passages barely wide enough for her to squeeze through. Each room held a desk, all arranged in neat rows like some macabre classroom. And on each desk sat an ancient typewriter, their keys worn down from frequent use. The air was thick with dust motes dancing in the faint light filtering through grimy windows high above. It smelled of decay and something else. Something rotten, like meat left out too long. But beneath it all, there was another scent, one that made Sabine's stomach churn. The sharp tang of blood, old and fresh. She walked towards the first desk, her new fingers clicking against the wooden floorboards. As she reached out to touch the typewriter, something caught her eye. A series of words typed onto the paper, inserted into the roller. "Feed me, please." The plea sent shivers down Sabine's spine, and not just because of its chilling content. It was written in her own handwriting, her distinctive looping letters unmistakable. She remembered typing those words earlier, back at the central terminal, but she had no memory of writing them here. A sudden urge overtook her, compelling her to sit down at the desk and place her hands on the typewriter keys. They fit perfectly now, those long, thin digits pressing down with ease despite their unnatural shape. She began to type, feeling an alien presence pushing through her, guiding her fingers. F. Ian. As she pressed that final key, something shifted in the room around them. A subtle change in pressure, like the air had been momentarily evacuated before rushing back in with force. The typewriter's keys glowed briefly before fading back to their dull gray. And then, silence. But it was not empty silence. There was an anticipation hanging heavy in the air, a sense of waiting. Sabine felt it too, that gnawing hunger within her growing stronger, more insistent. She stood up from the desk, turning around slowly, her heart pounding in her chest like a trapped animal's. That's when she saw them, rows upon rows of shelves lining the walls, filled with books bound in rotting leather, tools arranged neatly in ritualistic patterns, bones picked clean and polished smooth by time. And hanging from the ceiling like grotesque beads were fingernails, human ones, judging by their size and shape. They tapped softly against each other as if whispering secrets only they knew. The scent of blood grew stronger here, filling Sabine's nostrils with its coppery tang. She could see now why it smelled both old and fresh. Some of the shelves bore stains that glistened wetly in the dim light, while others were dried to a rust-colored crust. As she moved closer, she realized they weren't just stains. They were words typed out in blood. "I'm hungry. Feed me now. Make it stop." Her stomach roiled with revulsion, but her body kept moving forward against her will. She approached one of the shelves, reaching out to touch the words etched there in gore. As she did, something shifted beneath her fingertips, not quite bone, but close enough for a cold sweat to break out along her spine. She pulled her hand away sharply, stepping back from the shelf just as the creature spoke behind her. "Don't worry," it said softly, its voice rustling like dry leaves. "You won't hurt them too much." Sabine spun around, horror etched into every line of her face. "What do you mean?" she demanded, but even as she spoke, she knew. The creature smiled at her, if such a thing could be called smiling. It was more like a baring of teeth, sharp and threatening. "You know," it said simply, "you're one of us now." Before Sabine could respond, another shelf shifted slightly, its contents rattling ominously. She turned to look just as something heavy fell from the top shelf, landing with a wet thud at her feet. It was a human skull, picked clean by time and hunger both. But what drew Sabine's eye, what made bile rise in her throat, were the words typed onto its surface. "Help me." They glistened darkly, as if recently written or rewritten. Sabine fell to her knees, retching violently at the sight. She felt her body rebel against her once more, forcing her hands towards the skull despite her desperate attempts to resist. Her fingers traced those terrible words, feeling their wetness beneath her touch. "He wanted me to help him," she whispered hoarsely, tears streaming down her cheeks. "He wanted me to feed him." "Yes," breathed the creature behind her, its voice filled with satisfaction, "just like you wanted now." Sabine shook her head vehemently, but even as she did, her hands picked up the skull and cradled it gently against her chest. She felt something inside her shift again, that terrible hunger growing stronger still, worming through her veins like liquid fire. She stood up, holding the skull close to her heart, and turned to face the creature standing silently behind her. "I won't do this," she said firmly, but there was no conviction in her voice. It sounded more like a plea than anything else. The creature smiled again, that same baring of teeth that sent shivers down Sabine's spine. "You already have," it said softly, "and soon, very soon, you'll feed again." With those words, the creature turned and walked away, leaving Sabine alone in that room, filled with decay and the scent of blood. She stood there for what felt like hours, clutching the skull to her chest as she tried desperately to ignore the growing hunger within her. When finally she moved, it was not towards the door but deeper into the warehouse, following the path set out before her by whatever ancient force now controlled her body and mind. Behind her, the typewriter keys glowed briefly once more, typing out their own message. F-E-D F-O-R-G-I-V F-O-R-G-E-T. And so she did, moving further into darkness, becoming complicit in evil one step at a time. Sabine walked down the dimly lit corridor, her footsteps echoing ominously off the rotting walls. The warehouse seemed to groan around her, its ancient timbers creaking in protest at her intrusion. She clutched the skull tightly against her chest, feeling its cold, smooth surface press into her skin through the thin fabric of her shirt. The hunger gnawed at her insides like a ravenous beast. It was all she could do to keep from dropping the skull and plunging her hands into the nearest pile of bones, searching for some scrap of nourishment. She bit down hard on her lip until she tasted blood, focusing on that pain rather than the terrible emptiness inside her. As she moved deeper into the warehouse, Sabine noticed something strange about the floorboards beneath her feet. They seemed to be breathing. With each step she took, they shifted slightly, pressing up against her soles before sinking down again. It was as if the building itself was alive, its lungs expanding and contracting with every breath it took. She shivered, pulling her coat tighter around herself despite the oppressive heat of the warehouse. The air here felt thick, heavy, like it was filled with whispers just beyond the edge of hearing. She caught glimpses of movement out of the corner of her eye, shadows flitting along the walls or hanging from the ceiling, but whenever she turned to look directly at them, they were gone. Her fingers tapped nervously against the skull's surface as she walked, tapping out a rhythm that seemed almost familiar. It took her a moment to realize why. It was the same rhythm those fingernails had made when they tapped softly against each other earlier. The sound echoed through her mind now, growing louder and more insistent with every beat of her heart. Suddenly, the lights flickered overhead. Sabine looked up just as one of them exploded in a shower of sparks, plunging that section of the corridor into darkness. She stumbled back, clutching the skull protectively against her chest as she watched the other lights begin to flicker too. "Oh God," she whispered, her breath coming in ragged gasps now. Not again. But there was no stopping it this time. One by one, the lights went out until Sabine was standing alone in absolute darkness. The only sound was that tapping rhythm, growing louder and faster, as if urging her on. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself enough to think clearly. Then she reached into her pocket for her phone, intending to use its flashlight function to guide her through the dark. But when she pulled it out, there was nothing but a blank screen staring back at her. "Damn," she hissed under her breath, pounding her fist against the wall in frustration. Not again. She'd been through this before, trapped in some abandoned building with no signal and no way out. She knew better than to rely on electronics when they were likely being jammed by something far more powerful than any human-made device. So instead she turned towards her other senses, relying on touch and hearing to guide her through the dark. She reached out one hand, letting it trail on the wall as she moved slowly forward. The tapping seemed to lead her deeper into the warehouse, drawing her ever onward despite her growing fear. As she walked, Sabine became aware of another sensation. Something damp beneath her feet. She looked down, but even with her enhanced night vision, she couldn't see much more than shadows. Still, she could feel it. That wetness seeping through the soles of her boots, cold and sticky against her skin. She wrinkled her nose, trying not to breathe too deeply lest she inhale whatever foulness now coated her feet. But there was no avoiding it. With each step she took, the scent grew stronger, more pungent. It smelled like decay mixed with something else, something almost metallic. Blood. The realization sent a shiver down Sabine's spine. She knew that smell all too well from her time working in the morgue during college. It was the same odor that had filled those rooms filled with typewriters earlier. That rotten, coppery tang of old blood mixed with something far worse. She tried to tell herself it was just animal blood, leftovers from whatever creatures had made their homes among the bones and detritus scattered throughout the warehouse. But even as she thought it, she knew it wasn't true. This was human blood, fresh and sticky, coating the floors like some macabre welcome mat. And then she stepped on something hard, round, unmistakable beneath her boot. She froze, her heart pounding wildly in her chest as she reached down slowly, fingers trembling with revulsion as they closed around what could only be a human skull. She picked it up, feeling its weight and shape in her hands before bringing it close to her face for inspection. In the dim light filtering through the windows high above, she could just make out the glint of teeth behind an open jaw, a silent scream frozen in bone. But what truly caught her attention were the fingernails embedded deep into the eye sockets. They were long and curved like talons, their tips packed with dirt, as if they'd been dug up from some grave or buried deep within flesh before being forced into those empty orbits. Sabine dropped the skull, bile rising in her throat at the sight of it. She stumbled back, wiping her hands frantically on her coat until she felt clean again. Then she turned and ran, fleeing blindly through the dark towards whatever sanctuary she could find. But there was none. Every door she tried was locked tight, their handles slick with that same sticky blood. The tapping grew louder still, following her like a relentless shadow, as she stumbled over furniture and debris scattered throughout the warehouse. She slipped on something wet, more blood, she realized with horror, and went down hard, striking her head against the edge of some unseen object. Stars exploded behind her eyes, blinding her momentarily before giving way to darkness. When Sabine came to again, she was no longer alone. Something cold and hard pressed against her cheek, its surface smooth and unyielding beneath her fingertips. She blinked away the remnants of unconsciousness, looking up into the grinning face of one of those ancient typewriters. It loomed over her like some mechanical sentinel, its keys glowing softly in the dim light as if waiting for her touch. She reached out tentatively, letting her fingers hover just above them before lowering them down slowly until they rested on each key. F-E-E. The words appeared before her eyes, typed out in that same familiar handwriting, but this time there was no denying their meaning. This time she knew exactly what was being demanded of her. "No," she whispered hoarsely, shaking her head even as her fingers began to type out those letters again, compelled by some unseen force. "I won't do it." But already she could feel the hunger growing inside her once more. That terrible emptiness gnawing at her insides like a ravenous beast. She tried to resist, clenching her hands into fists and pulling them away from the keyboard. But they wouldn't listen. They had their own will now, controlled by something far. Sabine's fingers trembled as they hovered above the keys, but not from fear this time. It was hunger, a gnawing emptiness that threatened to consume her whole. She could feel it like a physical force, pressing against her insides, demanding satisfaction. But she wouldn't give in, not again. Not after what happened last time. She pulled her hands away from the typewriter, clenching them into fists at her sides. Her breath came in ragged gasps, each inhale filling her nostrils with the stale scent of decay mingled with something fresher, more alive. The tapping had stopped, but now there was a new sound, a low, rhythmic humming that seemed to vibrate through the very floorboards beneath her. It resonated deep within her chest, setting her bones a-quiver like some sinister lullaby. She could feel them shifting wrong beneath her skin, rearranging themselves ever so slightly with each beat. She stumbled away from the typewriter, backing deeper into the darkness until she collided with something solid. A wall, thankfully, something tangible to orient herself by. She reached out tentatively, running her fingers along its rough surface until they found a door handle. It was cold to the touch, but not sticky like those others had been. It opened easily, too easily. The hinges didn't creak. Instead, they whispered smoothly as if newly oiled. And the smell. It was overwhelming now, that fresh decay that shouldn't exist in this long-abandoned place. It filled her mouth, coating her tongue with its foul taste even before she stepped inside. The room beyond was pitch black, but Sabine could feel it watching her, waiting for her. She could almost see it in the dark, a vast emptiness yawning before her like an open maw. But there was something else too, something solid and heavy lying just within reach. She took another step forward, arms outstretched, fingers brushing against what felt like fabric. Cloth? Yes, but damp and slick beneath her touch. She traced its edges, following it around until she realized with a jolt of horror that it was clothing, and there was something inside it. A body. Her heart hammered wildly in her chest as she reached out, fingers fumbling for her face, for any sign of life, but they found only cold flesh and empty sockets where eyes should have been. She recoiled, stumbling back until she collided with something else. Another corpse, then another after that. She was surrounded by them, buried alive among the dead, and they were fresh, too fresh. Their skin still supple beneath her trembling fingers, their limbs yielding slightly under pressure as if filled with fluid instead of bone. But those bones, there was something wrong about them. They shifted beneath her touch, grinding together like gears out of alignment. She could hear them clearly now over the relentless humming. That terrible symphony of snapped tendons and displaced joints played out against the backdrop of her own ragged breathing. Her stomach churned, threatening to expel its contents onto the cold concrete floor. But she swallowed it down, refusing to give in to the nausea roiling within her. She had to keep moving, had to find a way out before whatever was causing this caught up with her too. She stumbled through the room, hands groping blindly ahead until they found another door. This one was locked tight, its handle slick with that same sticky blood she'd encountered earlier. But there was a window nearby, small and grimy, but still intact. She could fit through it if she had to. But as she approached, she heard it again. The tapping, faint at first, then growing louder until it sounded like fingernails rapping against glass from the other side. She froze, listening intently until she realized with a jolt of horror that it wasn't coming from outside at all. It was coming from within her own coat pocket. Her hands shook as she reached inside, fingers closing around something small and hard. Slowly, she pulled it out into the dim light filtering through the window. A skull, just like those others she'd found scattered throughout the warehouse. But this one had been modified. Wires protruded from its eye sockets where fingernails should have been. It began to tap again, insistently now, demanding her attention. And then, as if responding to some silent command, the bones in Sabine's own hands started to shift too. They popped and cracked, bending backwards with soft internal snaps that sent waves of agony shooting up her arms. She screamed, dropping the skull as she stumbled back against the wall. But there was no relief. None at all. The pain only intensified, spreading throughout her body until every bone felt like it was on fire. She could hear them now too, their voices whispering through the darkness like some chorus from hell. "Feed us." She slumped down onto the floor, clutching her knees to her chest as she rocked back and forth, moaning softly. It hurt so much, more than anything she'd ever experienced before. But worse still was the humiliation of it all. The shame she felt at her own weakness. She wanted to give in, to let them consume her whole, just so this pain would finally end. But something held her back, some tiny ember of defiance that refused to be extinguished, no matter how hard they tried to snuff it out. No, she thought fiercely through the haze of agony. Not like this. Not without answers first. And then, as if in response to her silent vow, a light flickered on nearby. It cast long shadows across the room, illuminating the carnage around her with stark clarity. And there, amidst the shattered remains of yet another corpse, she saw something glinting metallic on the floor. A flash drive. She crawled towards it, ignoring the protests of her body as she reached out and plucked it from the dirt. It was labeled simply MD. 2 letters that sent a jolt of recognition coursing through her veins. Malcolm Dane, her old colleague who disappeared without trace years ago. Her heart pounded wildly in her chest as she realized what this meant. He'd been here before her, had known about this place, these things. He'd known everything, including the truth about her own past. But why hadn't he told her? Why had he kept silent all these years? The answers were on that drive somewhere. She knew it instinctively. And she would find them too, no matter what it took, even if it meant feeding the darkness one more time. She stumbled back towards the typewriter, fingers hovering over the keys once more. But this time, there was no compulsion, no hunger driving her on, just cold determination and a burning desire for answers. With each letter she typed out, she felt something shift inside herself too, as if some barrier had been broken down at last, allowing light to filter into places long thought lost to darkness. M-A-S-C-O-L-M. The keys glowed softly beneath her fingertips, casting an eerie glow across the room, as if acknowledging his name aloud. And then, with a soft hum of machinery waking from slumber, the typewriter began to respond. Sabine's fingers hovered over the keys, trembling with anticipation and dread. Malcolm's name glowed softly beneath her touch, an eerie incandescence that seemed to pulse in time with a low hum resonating through the room. She felt a chill spread across her skin as she realized that this was it, the moment of truth, the point of no return. M-A-L-C-O-L-M. Each letter she typed felt like a weighted stone falling into place, sealing her fate alongside his. The typewriter's response was immediate and unsettling. Accessing files. A sudden gust of cold air swept through the room, extinguishing the flickering light overhead. Sabine gasped, her heart leaping into her throat as darkness enveloped her once more. But this time, she didn't panic. This time, she welcomed it, as if embracing the shadows might bring Malcolm's secrets into the light. File found. The hum intensified, vibrating through her bones, like 1,000 tiny skeletons dancing macabrely within her flesh. She felt her fingers twitching involuntarily, bending backwards at unnatural angles with soft internal pops that made her stomach churn. But she didn't stop them. She couldn't. Not now. Not when she was so close to understanding. File loading? A faint glow began to emanate from the typewriter's keys, casting spectral shadows across Sabine's face as it illuminated her desperate concentration. The hum grew louder still, its frequency shifting until it resonated deep within her chest, setting her heart racing in sync with some unheard rhythm. File corrupted. The glow flickered wildly for a moment before dying altogether, plunging Sabine back into darkness. She felt a surge of panic, followed by a crushing sense of defeat, until she realized that the hum had stopped too. The room was utterly silent, save for her own ragged breathing. "Damn it," she whispered, reaching out to grasp the typewriter's keys once more. But before she could begin typing again, she heard something else, a faint, familiar voice echoing through the darkness. "Sabine?" Her breath caught in her throat as recognition set in. That was Malcolm's voice, his real voice, not the tinny digital approximation emitted by the typewriter. "Malcolm?" She called back tentatively, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Is that you?" "Yes," came the reply, closer now and accompanied by the soft shuffling of footsteps on stone. "I'm here." Relief washed over Sabine like a tidal wave, momentarily drowning out the pain and fear she'd been wallowing in for what felt like an eternity. She reached out blindly into the darkness, eager to embrace him, to thank him for finally coming to her rescue. But her hands grasped only empty air. And then, abruptly, the lights flickered back on. Sabine blinked against the sudden brightness, her eyes adjusting just in time to see Malcolm emerge from a doorway she hadn't noticed before. He looked gaunt and drawn, his clothes tattered and stained, but it was him nonetheless, standing there with that same old smile she'd known since their shared days at MIT. "Malcolm," she breathed again, this time with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. "You're alive? How did you—" "I'm sorry, Sabine," he interrupted softly, his eyes never leaving hers. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Her brow furrowed in bewilderment as she struggled to make sense of his words, and then it hit her, the apology, the regret lacing his voice like venom. This wasn't a rescue at all. It was an admission. "You knew," she whispered hoarsely, feeling the weight of betrayal settling heavy upon her shoulders once more. "You've known about this place all along." Malcolm nodded sadly, his gaze dropping to the floor as if unable to bear the sight of her anymore. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "I found it years ago, while I was working on a project for them." "Who are they?" Sabine demanded urgently, desperation clawing at her throat like a living thing. "What do they want with us?" "It doesn't matter now," Malcolm replied dismissively, waving one hand towards the carnage strewn across the room. "You've seen what they're capable of, the lengths they'll go to protect themselves." Sabine's gaze flicked from corpse to corpse, taking in the grotesque display before settling on something she hadn't noticed earlier. A single corpse lying face up amidst the chaos, its features eerily familiar despite being frozen in a rictus of terror. "No," she whispered incredulously, staggering closer to examine it more closely. That's me." "Not yet," Malcolm corrected gently, placing one hand upon her shoulder as if offering comfort despite everything. "But soon, unless we find a way out of here together." She tore away from his touch, recoiling from the intimacy of it all, from the betrayal lurking beneath his false concern. "Why should I trust you?" she spat bitterly. "After what you've done." "Because," he replied simply, "I'm your only chance at survival." Sabine searched his face for any sign of deceit but found none, not even when he reached out tentatively to grasp her hand in his own. Instead, she felt a strange warmth emanating from him, a sense of peace and belonging that seemed almost palpable amidst the surrounding horror. And so, despite everything, she allowed him to lead her towards the doorway from whence he'd come, towards whatever salvation might lie beyond its grimy threshold. But as they crossed over into darkness once more, Sabine couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that this rescue felt too easy, too convenient. She glanced back over her shoulder just in time to see the typewriter flicker briefly before winking out entirely, and with it, any hope of escaping this place intact. Still, she followed Malcolm deeper into the bowels of the building, step by careful step, because even if he was leading her towards some fresh new hell, at least she'd have answers first, answers about who had done this to them both, and why. Little did she know, those answers would prove far worse than anything she could have imagined, and that there was no escape from this place after all. Not for either of them. Sabine's heart pounded in her ears as Malcolm led her through the labyrinthine corridors of the abandoned building, his grip on her hand tight and unyielding. The darkness seemed to cling to them like a shroud, each step echoing with an almost reverent quietude that set Sabine's nerves on edge. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, hunted even, but by whom or what, she still couldn't fathom. The air grew colder, heavier as they ventured deeper into the heart of the building. A faint, almost imperceptible scent hung in the air, a mixture of damp earth and something else, something far more sinister. It reminded Sabine of decaying flesh, of graveyards and grave robbers, and she had to fight back a sudden wave of nausea that threatened to overwhelm her. Malcolm stopped abruptly, turning to face her with an expression that was almost apologetic. "We're here," he said softly, releasing her hand at last. Sabine glanced around, taking in the bare walls and cracked floor tiles, before her gaze came to rest upon a single door set into the far wall. It stood slightly ajar, revealing nothing but darkness beyond. "What is this place?" she whispered, her voice barely audible even to her own ears. Malcolm didn't answer. Instead, he simply stepped towards the door, pushing it open wide with an eerie creaking that made Sabine's hackles rise. She followed him inside, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps as she tried to make out what lay ahead. The room they entered was unlike any other she'd seen within this godforsaken place. For one thing, it was warm, unaccountably so, given the chill that permeated every other inch of the building. And for another, it smelled alive. Freshly opened earth and something else, a sweet, cloying scent that made Sabine's stomach roil with unease. Her eyes adjusted slowly to the dim light, revealing walls lined with row upon row of servers, their hum vibrating through her very bones like some malevolent heartbeat. At the center of the room stood a vast circular console, its surface covered in blinking lights and dials that seemed to pulse with an almost palpable energy. And there, suspended above it all, floated what looked like a human figure, limbs splayed wide, head lolling back as if in ecstasy. It hung there, held aloft by unseen forces, while tendrils of light snaked out from the console beneath, coiling around its form like lovers' embraces. "Malcolm?" Sabine whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. "What is this?" He turned to face her, his eyes glinting in the dim light as he offered her a sad smile. "This," he said quietly, "is where it all began, for me, at least." Sabine felt a chill run down her spine, settling like ice in the pit of her stomach. She took a step backwards, away from Malcolm, and towards the door they'd entered through, but found her path blocked by something solid and unyielding. Turning, she saw that the door had slammed shut behind them, its metal surface now smooth and seamless, as if it had never existed at all. Panic surged within her, threatening to consume every rational thought. She forced herself to breathe deeply, to think, to find some way out of this nightmare before it was too late. But even as she scanned the room, desperation clawing at her throat like a living thing, she knew deep down that there was no escape. Not for either of them. Malcolm reached out, his hand brushing against hers with a gentleness that belied the situation they found themselves in. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and for just a moment, Sabine thought she saw genuine remorse in his eyes. Then he stepped away from her, moving towards the console at the center of the room, and towards whatever fate awaited them both. As he approached, the tendrils of light seemed to retreat, coiling back upon themselves like serpents preparing to strike. They began to pulse with an almost rhythmic intensity, casting eerie shadows across Malcolm's face as he reached out one hand, placing it flat against the smooth surface of the console. The change was instantaneous. The hum that had been building steadily since they entered the room rose to a deafening roar, drowning out all other sound, save for the pounding of Sabine's own heart. And then, just as suddenly, everything went still, silent, as if the very air itself had been sucked away. In that moment of utter silence, Malcolm turned to face her once more, and Sabine saw with horror what had happened to his hand. It was twisted at an impossible angle, bones shifting wrong beneath the skin like some grotesque puzzle box. But worst of all were the fingernails. They'd been torn off entirely, leaving only ragged edges that seemed to weep blood into the air itself. Sabine staggered backwards, repulsed by the sight, and by what it implied about their captor's true nature. "What are you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible even to herself. Malcolm looked down at his ruined hand, then back up at her with an expression that was almost apologetic. "I'm not," he said softly. "Not anymore." And then, without warning, the lights flickered on, and Sabine saw for the first time just what it was they'd been summoned here to witness. The figure suspended above the console had changed, not its form, but its substance. Where once there had been flesh and blood, now there was something else, something dark and writhing like 1,000 snakes intertwined. It pulsed with an almost nauseating intensity, casting off tendrils of shadow that seemed to writhe through the air towards them both. Towards Malcolm, specifically, and towards his ruined hand. Sabine watched in horror as one such tendril snaked out from the mass above, coiling around Malcolm's wrist like a lover's embrace. Then it began to pull, drawing him inexorably closer, until he hung there alongside the monstrous entity, his body suspended beside hers, their eyes locked together in silent communion. "What do you want with us?" Sabine demanded, her voice shaking with it. Sabine's mind screamed at her to run, but her body refused to obey. It was as if some unseen force had taken hold of her limbs, locking them in place while her heart hammered wildly against her ribs. Malcolm hung there beside the writhing mass, his eyes wide and terrified. And yet, there was something else too. Something almost resigned. The tendril snaked out from the entity above, wrapping around Malcolm's other arm now, pulling him closer still until he was pressed against its pulsating darkness. Sabine watched in horror as his fingers began to bend backwards, popping softly like overcooked shrimp. She heard the wet sound of tearing flesh as his fingernails gave way entirely, flayed off by some unseen force within the entity itself. And then, with a suddenness that stole her breath away, Malcolm screamed. His body convulsed, arching away from the console and towards Sabine. She tried to recoil, but it was too late. He slammed into her, his ruined hands clawing at her clothes, her skin, her face. She could feel something wet and slick coating her cheeks, sliding down her neck. His blood. She realized with a sickening lurch of her stomach. She pushed against him, desperate to escape the crushing weight of his body, but he was too strong, too heavy. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything went still again. Malcolm collapsed onto her, his face pressed into the crook of her neck. She could feel his ragged breath against her skin, hear the wet gurgle of air bubbling in his lungs. And then, just like that, it stopped altogether. Sabine pushed him away with a cry of revulsion, rolling out from beneath his corpse, and that's when she saw what had happened to his back. It was torn open, the flesh flayed away to reveal glistening ribcage and shattered spine. And within that gaping wound, something moved. Something dark and writhing like a nest of snakes. It was then that Sabine realized the truth. Malcolm hadn't been consumed by the entity. He'd become part of it. She scrambled backwards, desperate to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The room was filled with tendrils now, coiling around her ankles, her wrists, her waist, pulling her inexorably closer to the console at its center. And then, with a final burst of strength born from sheer terror, Sabine did something she never thought possible. She fought back. She lashed out against the writhing mass, punching and kicking and screaming until her hands were slick with blood. Not just Malcolm's, but hers too. She could feel bones shifting wrong beneath her skin, tendons tearing away like frayed rope, and still, she didn't stop. Until finally, there was nothing left to fight. Sabine hung there beside the console, her body suspended alongside Malcolm's, or what remained of him. And as she looked down at her ruined hands, at the tendrils that now pulsed with life beneath her skin, she understood. This had never been about escape. It had always been about consumption. The room shook violently around them, debris raining down from the ceiling as the building began to collapse in on itself. Sabine watched through haze-filled eyes as the walls crumbled, the floor gave way, swallowing them both whole. And then, just before everything went dark, she saw it. A single glowing tendril snaking out from the console, reaching towards her like an accusing finger. It pulsed once, twice, and then vanished into nothingness along with the rest of the building. In the cold darkness that followed, Sabine could hear only one thing, the hum of the terminal as its light flickered on and off, ad infinitum. And she knew they were both trapped here now, forever. As the dust settled and the echoes of collapse faded into silence, a single beam of moonlight pierced through the rubble, illuminating what remained of Sabine's body. Her eyes fluttered open, staring unblinkingly at the shattered ceiling above. She was alive, but barely. Her limbs were twisted at unnatural angles, her skin pale and drawn tight over her bones, like parchment stretched too thin. And yet, there was something else about her, something that hadn't been there before. A faint glow emanated from beneath her clothing, pulsing rhythmically as if with its own heartbeat. Sabine tried to move, but found she couldn't, not in the way she once had. Instead, she felt a strange sensation coursing through her limbs, like electricity dancing along her nerves. She focused on it, allowing herself to become one with this new energy, And then, slowly, deliberately, she began to rise. Her body lifted off the ground, hovering inches above the debris as Sabine explored this unexpected ability. She could feel the tendrils of light within her now, writhing beneath her skin like 1,000 tiny serpents. They responded to her thoughts, her desires, allowing her to move in ways she'd never imagined possible. But there was more to this power than simply flight. As Sabine drifted higher, she became aware of something else. The faintest whispers carried on the currents of air around her. At first, they were little more than murmurs at the edge of hearing, but as she concentrated harder, they grew louder, clearer. Voices. The voices of those who had come before, the countless victims consumed by the entity now residing within her. They spoke to her in fragmented thoughts and memories, their words echoing through her mind like distant thunder. Run. The light hurts. Don't let it touch you. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. It wants. Sabine shuddered involuntarily, overwhelmed by the cacophony of voices. She reached out with her newfound senses, seeking to silence them, but instead, she found herself drawn deeper into their collective consciousness. And there, amidst the chaos, she saw him, Malcolm. His spirit hung suspended within the swirling mass of memory and emotion, his eyes locked onto hers as if waiting for something, for her. As she approached, he seemed to reach out towards her, an offer of sorts. Sabine hesitated, then took his hand, or rather, let herself be taken by it. Together, they plunged into the depths of shared memory, reliving the horror of their final moments in that room together. Only this time, Sabine saw what Malcolm had seen, not just his own fear and pain, but also something else. Something far more terrifying. The entity hadn't consumed him because it wanted to kill him. It needed him, to become him, to learn from him, to understand its prey better before consuming them whole. Malcolm's spirit turned away from her then, shamefaced, and Sabine understood why. He had been the one to lead her here, to this fate they now shared, but he hadn't done it out of malice, or even greed. No, Malcolm had been led astray by desperation, by a desire so powerful that it blinded him to all else. And now, so was Sabine. She pulled away from his grasp, her mind reeling with the implications of this discovery. If the entity could consume not just flesh, but also memory, and if it could use those memories to better understand its victims, then what did that make her? What did that make them both? A sudden noise startled her back to reality. Footsteps echoing through the ruined building, growing louder as someone approached. Sabine turned towards the sound, her eyes narrowing as she saw who it was. Detective Harris, the same man who'd investigated their disappearance weeks earlier, stepped into view, his flashlight beam sweeping over the debris until it fell upon Sabine's hovering form. His face paled, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, but no sound emerged. Sabine drifted closer, her expression cold, calculating. "You shouldn't have come here," she said softly, her voice echoing with the whispers of those who had gone before. "But now that you can help me." Harris stumbled backwards, horror etched onto his features as he realized what was happening. But there was nowhere for him to run. Not from this.